And so when this all started to happen back in March, my coworker and I, Jennifer Kem, went into mode where we could definitely figure out how to get up online. And it was a challenge a bit to me, but a challenge that was long overdue, because I also have a private practice where I see people with acute and chronic illness, caregiver support, grief and bereavement, and women's health issues. So both of the entities needed to, kind of be updated. So I looked at a HIPAA compliant platform called Simple Practice Telehealth, and was trained by a relative who knows IT very well. And it has been up and running and beautiful, and I'm able to reach people in all kind of wonderful rural areas and anywhere really. And so that's gone really well for us. People can reach us either on their desktop, their laptop, or their phone even. I am still doing phone counseling for people that do not have the technology and offer that support. All of our services are free of charge, and we're very proud to be able to honor that. And it is not time limited, but you do have to have a diagnosis of cancer, or a family member has to have. You have to either be a caregiver or a loved one caring for somebody with cancer to get the services.
Wonderful. Thank you, Wendy. Next slide, please. And our next panelist is Colleen Dwyer, as I mentioned before, from our clubhouse. Now, our clubhouse has a cumulative experience of over 14 years of serving, once again, in the Pittsburgh area, and has a wide range of support services. You can see listed here, there's creative expression, clinical support, children, teens, and families, education, family and youth activities, health and wellness workshops, and living life past cancer treatment. And I have my own slides here too I can look at, and as well as providing some social activities.
Some of the slides are coming through, so my apologies. I'll catch up as I'm speaking. My apologies.
That's okay. And so, and I believe, Colleen, that you have been there from the very beginning. And Colleen's going to talk about today the Stay Connected Living Life with Metastatic Breast Cancer Support Group, which is kind of it's an interesting combination of support group, but also physical activity.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. Thanks so much, Ruth, and everybody who's on the call. Yes, so we have a Living Life with Metastatic Breast Cancer group that we started in 2017. And it was really started because we just felt like we had women that were coming to us and had specific needs with a metastatic breast cancer diagnosis. And there really wasn't a place for them to come, a space to be able to talk about that. So we decided to start the group, and we have another program that we do called Living Life Post-Cancer Treatment, where we've incorporated exercise and various topics. It's a 9-week program, but what we thought we would do is incorporate some of that into the Living Life Metastatic group, and it's worked out really well. When we are doing this group in the building, it's a 2-hour group, but as we've moved to virtual, it's an 1.5 hours. And we do have our exercise specialist that's on the call for a half an hour and provides low impact movement. And then we have a discussion that's done by the facilitators, or we have a guest speaker that comes into the group. So it's been a great addition. When we started the group, we had a core group, have had a core group in the building. And when we moved to virtual, unfortunately, we had a couple deaths that had recently happened. So it was definitely a transition to get people on the call, but we now have that core group, a kind of a new core group that's started with the virtual, but it's moving forward and it's going well.
Wonderful. Thank you, Colleen. Next slide, please. Our third panelist member is Yolanda Murphy. As I mentioned before, Yolanda is representing the Young Adult Survivors United, and this organization kind of evolved out of a program from the Cancer Caring Center, started around 2011 and kind of grew and evolved, and recently became its own 501c3 this year, Yolanda, I believe.
Yes.
And you are a founding board member as well as a volunteer who is running the monthly African American Young Adult Cancer Support Group. So could you give us a little bit more information about that?
Sure, sure. And much as it's already been spoken, thank you so much for having me today. And thank you for everyone for joining the call. It's an honor. But again, my name is Yolanda Murphy. I am currently, as a profession, I am a clinical trial ambassador with UPMC Hillman. Actually, I work with Lynn. Hey, Lynn.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure. And I'm also a research specialist at the University of Pittsburgh School of Nursing. So much as Ruth has spoken, I am a 4-year breast cancer survivor as well. So what I did throughout these last 4 years is taken my passion and my pain and advocacy and turn it into my profession. So now I am connected first as a member of what was Young Adult Cancer Survivors out of the Cancer Caring Center, and then as the years have progressed, and much like Ruth said, what is now the Young Adult Survivors United did become an official 501c3 this year, despite COVID, and I am one of the board members. We recently just started our African American Young Adult Cancer Support Group because much as it's been spoken throughout the morning and throughout the afternoon, we know that there are disparities, and nothing like being in a group who just gets it and who knows exactly where you're coming from. So the group so far has been going amazing, and it's been a great addition to all of the other programs and everything we have with YASU.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to kind of bounce right off of you right there, Yolanda, because your group in particular is very much a social group, getting together, being face to face, and doing things as part of your support. So how has COVID and the whole quarantine impacted participation?
It's actually been increasing, if I'm honest. So before COVID, just for a little background, the support group met once a month. Originally, it was at the Cancer Caring Center, where we got together in a support group setting where we could share and like you said, be with one another. And we also had social outings once a month where we got to have fun and literally just not think about cancer. But since everything, of course, is now online, not only have we been able to have our regular core members join us on our Zoom calls, but we actually have members from other cities and states that are joining as well. A lot of people right now are looking and searching for support, and social media has been a huge help in regards to getting the word out about the young adult cancer support that is available. So it's been very uphill in regards to attendance, and not even just anymore from the city, but from throughout the states.
Well, that's exciting. I know, Colleen, you already mentioned that there was kind of a shift with participation with the Metastatic group that your organization runs. Have you noticed any other change of the type of person who's able to participate? Is it a younger group, or is technology kind of the issue with getting participation?
It can be. It really depends on the situation. It's much what Yolanda said. It's been very successful. I mean, it's just we've been able to get people involved that maybe couldn't get to the clubhouse, people with their schedules. It was difficult for them to get there for whatever reason, transportation maybe being an issue. And now with people being at home more, it's easy to access. But there are some people that have had difficulty getting online if they didn't have a computer. We try to get them to call in and help them with getting the connection to the Zoom calls. That's the platform that we use. And yeah, it's been, for the most part, it's really been a success. As population wise, not really, it's been across the board. Younger folks, older folks. We have a child life specialist that is on our staff. So she works with kids and families. And this summer we had a camp for our kids, and we had, I think there was 30 participants. So that was definitely a younger group of people, but it was really their parents that were getting them connected. So we've seen really across the board.
Okay. And I know, Wendy, you and I have had a conversation where, in virtually all of the cancer caring support groups went virtual eventually through once the quarantine was established. But specifically now with your telemedicine, have you noticed an uptick in your telecounseling, I should say? Have you noticed an uptick in requests, or has it kind of remained kind of equal to pre-COVID for you?
I'll have to say it's booming. It's more than I could ever have imagined, actually. Between the private practice and the Cancer Caring Center, I probably see at least 30 clients a week, telehealth. And I get usually at least 5 to 6 new referrals a week. And, so it is really booming. And I think that is just also, like Colleen and both Yolanda referred to, is our social media has just taken off. It's really it's challenging in one way, but it's easy in another way to put things up and flyers up and get the word out there. And boom, you're just on the screen. And it's a lot easier to be able to attend things. For instance, even our general groups, which are, usually emotional support groups, we started with a general group. We usually had maybe 10, 12 people attend those groups if we were lucky, to be able to get out of their houses and get dressed and get the energy to drive to the facility. And particularly in the dark months when it turns dark at 5 o'clock. And now they can just tune in and be there for an hour and, go off the screen and go have dinner and spend time with their families. And that also goes for a lot of our speakers in our groups. We've had some really great physicians, nutritionists, psychologists. 2 times a month I'll have a speaker, and 2 times I'll have a general chat with people every Wednesday. They pretty much know at 5 o'clock to tune in. And I kind of have been able to tie in our support groups a lot better with my telehealth counseling too, because when the referrals come in, we discuss what other services we have that can help support their therapy. And so we have wellness groups where they're able to tune in for calming techniques, twice a month. We have a nutritional class once a month, and now our art therapist is up and running too. So it's all really tied very nicely together. And I think people are really and word of mouth is getting spread out there, because I think when we ask where they're coming from, they'll say, oh, well, we heard about it from, another person on another website. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
Okay. I want to take this time. Kate, could you advance the slide one more so that everybody's contact information is up there? And I also want to invite the audience, if you have any questions, to feel free to just jump in here. Otherwise, I'm going to control the conversation and just ask a bunch of questions I have prepared.
Hi, this is Lynn. I have a question for all the speakers. Since you are virtual, and I don't know if you're tracking this, but are you seeing your reach be greater? For instance, I'm really interested in across Pennsylvania. Are we reaching people in the rural counties? Are we reaching people that otherwise probably wouldn't drive in, but do have needs also?
I can answer that, Lynn. Absolutely. It's kind of funny because I always would know where people were from, right? When they came into the center, oh, you drove in from so-and-so. Now it is just like, it doesn't really matter, but we certainly do track it. And we have people from, Erie. We have people from Grove City. We have people from the middle of towns I've never even heard of before, Hermione, Mount Pleasant. So we are reaching people, and if they're having a difficult time with the technology, we do the phone counseling, and that works well for a lot of people, particularly the older population. Even some of my young population, believe it or not, you would think they would want to be seen, but they prefer to talk to me on the phone because they don't want to, really even get out of bed, frankly, and put on, makeup or whatever, and they just talk to me. So it really has worked. We've reached people everywhere.
This is great.
Yeah, so have we. Same thing, Wendy. It's just, like you said, it's been, we've reached a lot more people, and I think that's just the flexibility, the ability to hop online, and it's right there. It's it's been a great addition to the services that we're providing.
Wonderful.
Absolutely. Same
So,
here.
well, that's what I was going to say, Yolanda. You young people tend to be on social media anyhow.
Mhm.
So, is there a need beyond the social media to attend a group, or is it kind of still just mixed between I'll send you a Snapchat saying, hey, I'm feeling crappy, and you send a smile back, or?
Well, yes. So lo and behold, in the age of modern technology, what we found is, although social media is amazing, whether you have your TikToks or your Snapchats, all of that allows the community to stay connected. Facebook, Instagram, all of those great things. But there's nothing like just sitting in a room discussing with people who just get it, what you're going through as you go through your cancer walk. And then later you can Snapchat, you're sitting in your chemo chair or, something of that nature, but nothing beats that still coming together. Like Wendy was saying, 5, 6 o'clock, on the dot to log in and be ready to be yourself. And as I always say to the group, make sure you tell your truth. So definitely, although Snapchat and all of those things are great, it still can't beat that great emotional support that you can get with a group. Absolutely.
Wonderful. I see Monica has her hand up.
Sorry, I needed to take myself off of mute. I actually wanted to come in before you got to the closing. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody for both their patience, their planning, their dedication, and commitment to getting this work out. I want to encourage everyone. This time we had a lot of people that are not necessarily members of our Pennsylvania Cancer Coalition. And although I typed it in the chat box, I want to encourage you, if you're interested in joining, to go to pcc.org so that you can become a member and have those things that you're talking about be represented. I also wanted to encourage folks to send me their emails. If you aren't a member, I may not have your actual email to send you post-meeting follow-up or keep you engaged in the coalition work going forward. That was all I wanted to offer. Thank you.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Yeah. I think what I appreciate about the groups that we have here is that they really are connecting and certainly provide a potential outlet for communicating some of the things that we are achieving through the Cancer Coalition as well. So we certainly welcome any new members that way. So to kind of go back to that social media thing and being online, I think one of the thoughts that I had, and it came up, Wendy, whenever you talked about the platform that you selected to work on. Did you have concerns of privacy issues? Because I'm sitting at home, you don't know who's over my shoulder or listening in. Are there some concerns about that? Because when you're in the room at the group, you see who's there.
Yes, a huge concern. I am married to an attorney who's always keeping me conscious of that, even though I'm not always conscious of that sometimes, but certainly as my ethic, training for social work, it's important to me. So when they would come into the center, they had a consent form that I had developed a couple of years ago to sign, as well as for our support groups they signed. But of course that went away, and it would have been very cumbersome to send things out to people. So what we did is we found a telehealth consent form, and we approved it through our attorney, and we put it up online. So when you come to join a group, we have you at least look at it to join the group. They have to review it, right, and say they've reviewed it. For the telehealth platform, why I chose it is it has wonderful, wonderful paperwork already done. I didn't have to recreate the wheel. So I sent 2 emails out to my whoever's going to have the appointment. We set the appointment, do an intake, we set the appointment up. I send them 2 emails, ask them how they're going to connect with me. If they connect on a laptop or a desktop with a camera and a microphone, then I just send them an email with a telehealth consent electronically to fill out, and it comes back to me. and then it just is registered, under my client list under Simple Practice. And then they get a second email. The second email will then send them the link to connect, similar to Zoom or to, these type of meetings that we're on right now. And then they just pop up in my virtual waiting room, and then they're on my screen, which is really great. And it works out very easily if they are using a iPad or their iPhone, which they can even use an iPhone or an Android. Then they just have to download the Telehealth Practice app. And then when they click on the link, then they appear. So, and that's all HIPAA compliant. It's absolutely amazing for me as a therapist because it comes up on my phone as a HIPAA compliant. Even I can keep track of all my clients. I can text them on my phone. It's all it's still private. And so it's really ideal, to have it this way.
That's nice. So Colleen, whenever your groups are taking place now, have the quote unquote ground rules kind of changed a little bit because they're virtual? I don't know if you know, like typically there's a typical structure that a support group has, and they all have their own kind of personalities. But have you noticed any kind of shift in how people are communicating through the virtual setting?
Yes, and I mean, I think it has changed a bit. It kind of goes along with what Wendy just said. I think that, before our people join the groups, we ask them to read over an informed consent and sign off on that. And on there, it talks about confidentiality and just even making people aware of who's in the room, having a private space, and also just making sure on the call that you're sharing the space. It's hard to, you really have to pay attention. In fact, it's not exhausting, but when you've facilitated a group and you're done, you're like, wow, it's just a little bit different than the in-person, right? Because people can see you interacting and nodding and just gesturing. When you're on a Zoom call, I find myself like really getting into it to just really make sure that people can see that I'm hearing them, and just being really in that moment with all of them and helping to facilitate that. But there are definitely different things that come up in the calls. There's a dog that's barking in the background and muting that. And of course, you don't want everyone to mute all the time, because you want people to have the ability and the freedom to talk and to share in that moment and not feel like they have to, oh, wait, I got to take myself off and mute. But yet there are times when we need to mute because somebody comes to the door or some random thing happens that we have to address. So yes, I would definitely agree that the rules have changed and they're just a little bit different.
That's kind of interesting. So the when you have a topic speaker, say for your support group, have you I guess you kind of answered this earlier, Wendy. You've maybe broadened the people and the opportunities you have to present, because it is easier to kind of join this remote scenario because you don't have to drive somewhere. And, if you have a meeting, that ends 5 minutes before the next meeting starts, you can still do it, as opposed to if you would have had to driven somewhere and parked and arrived. So having that opportunities opened up, are there topics now that you're talking about that you maybe didn't talk about before?
Totally. In my slide Ruth had put up before, I actually typically do telehealth counseling. I look at my kind of own developed 7 areas of wellness with my clients. We kind of go through that. And so I've kind of taken each one of those 7 areas and I've elaborated with guest speakers. I've kind of sought out guest speakers that might be able to look at those to, like I said, complement my my counseling services. And it's just been amazing who I've been able to, get. We actually have a wonderful presentation coming up in October. There's a book that came out called Radical Remission. And it talks about, in addition to traditional medicine, to Western medicine, adding some complementary medicine. And we're able to get a national speaker to come in and talk about that from this book. So we feel really blessed. And like I said, typically when we have these speakers, it also is a good indication of what we need to increase our services. If we have somebody on, for instance, I've always wanted to start a cognitive support group for people that have lost some of their cognitive abilities due to chemo or their cancers or whatever it is that they're struggling with cognitively. So we have a speech pathologist that came on from UPMC who's phenomenal. He's been there 30 years. He's the director. He did one seminar. I had 38 people attend. It was phenomenal. And out of that, we now started a monthly support group that John comes on, and he comes up with a topic like short-term memory or executive functioning. And we had that group launched last week, and we started out with probably 32 people in that group. So it provided an opportunity for us to further increase our services, frankly, not just maintain them, and be more creative. So it's been great.
Right, and that's why I want to jump in here and reiterate, you mentioned it before, but all three organizations offer their services for free. And so, the idea that you can get a national speaker without having to pay for their flight in and all of those other things certainly does mean that you get to expand services. Yolanda, I'd like you to talk a little bit more about the specialization of the support group that you're heading.
Absolutely. So we just launched last month the Young Adult African American Support Group. And the question was raised in the chat. Young adult age is usually considered between 18 and 40 to 45, depending upon the organization that you're connected to. But we saw a need in the community, especially around the disparities in regards to not just for young adults, but any cancers that we all know about. So we really wanted to hone in on the specialization of what our community goes through. So we knew sometimes it was not easy for someone of African-American descent to speak to someone that was not looking like them or went through some of the same disparities that they've gone through growing up in childhood or family dynamics that were different. And so we saw that, sometimes people were holding back from being open and honest in the group. So we decided to kind of just step out on faith and support this specific group of people, because we know that, if you're not educated around a thing, or if you don't talk about it, it doesn't go away. It sometimes can fester and get worse. And we really wanted to hone in on what our community has been thinking, has been feeling, being Black and having cancer. It's a whole different ballgame. So it's been going well so far. We've had a lot of great feedback, specifically around just feeling like I can be me. In a space where I know, you understand growing up in the projects, how we ate and how we didn't get enough adequate food, or we didn't sleep well because we were getting evicted. So many different things that would come out in a group because everyone just gets it. And it's been very eye-opening, even for me as a survivor. And now being a facilitator on the other side of things, it's been really a great space to be safe in. And it's been a great space for them to just be themselves. And it's been going great. It's been going great.
That's really good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, you've all had experiences with talking with people now over a period of time in COVID. What's the biggest stressor? The cancer diagnosis or what's happening with COVID? Or is it a split deal?
That's a loaded question.
That is asked it.
No, it's a very valid and great question, though, if you don't mind me speaking on it. I would say it's probably about 50-50 contingent upon where someone is in their cancer journey. If you're speaking of someone who was I know in our group, we had two African-American women, one with breast cancer and one with sarcoma, who had reoccurrences during COVID. They were good for like 3 years, 4 years. And then back to back, we got word in our support group that they both had a reoccurrence. So depending upon where you find someone, I know we have a couple people that are still in active treatment, of course. And, them having to go into treatment without someone coming in with them. because, you know, due to COVID and all of that. It's been 50-50. But if I'm honest, I mean, I don't think anything, although COVID is affecting everyone around the globe, cancer just hits different. Cancer diagnosis and journey is just different all the way around, speaking from a survivor standpoint as well. So it's been interesting, though, to see how people respond and react to the different rules and regulations we have now going into clinic or going to doctor's appointments. So I would say it's 50-50. What do you ladies think?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think sometimes I spend a lot of, I mean, it is challenging facilitating in general online. And it is, like Colleen said, I'm exhausted by the time I come off of a group, in a good way, but still it's exhausting in many ways because you do have people in one way or another. Some people are frozen in fear and they couldn't imagine getting out of their houses. And then other people are like, look, I have a metastatic stage 4 cancer and I want to live. So I'm gonna go out and be careful about things, right? So, and then there's that anger that goes between the two of them back and forth. So you really, which is a lot harder to facilitate online rather than, you know, in person. But it works as much as we can. And I think I agree with Yolanda as well. I think it depends on the stage of where they are in their journey, because some of the newly diagnosed patients that had to go in by themselves for the diagnosis without their loved one really were angry and scared and terrified. And I spent a lot of counseling time with those patients, really getting them to have some control back in their life.
Yeah, and I mean, just agreeing with both of you guys, we do a social chat once a day. And in the beginning, when everything started with COVID, people were just so fearful and just feeling so much isolation as well, and really struggling, not really sure, you know, what to do. Things have opened up a bit and people are moving more. So I think that's helped. But it's just, you know, things change all the time. And so people will come into the chat and just share what's going on with them and their struggles. And I think that's been really helpful to know that there's other people that are going through this, and it's like a check-in with each other. So that's been a nice thing to offer. But yeah, it's interesting times. That's all I have to say. I mean, you get set in one way, you think things are gonna go well, like even with kids in school, and then, you know, a day later things are looking different. So just kind of going with the change right now.
I tried to give each of my, like whenever we've done some social media videos, which is really not my favorite thing to do, but I do them. And I say to my clients each day to do 3 things, right? Is to find something that you do to bring you some peace, something to bring you some joy, and something to be grateful for. And they seem to really hold on to that, because I'll tease my Wednesday group, because I pretty much know all those people. They're pretty faithful attendees since March now, and I'll ask them that question: what are the 3 things you're supposed to do this week? And then they'll say that. So trying to give people some hope, including, I'm sure you guys would agree, ourselves, right?
Absolutely, because like you said, it's exhausting because you're literally carrying the weight of the people in the room, you know what I mean? And so when you get off, you're like, but you also have to take that time for you. So I totally agree, Wendy.
Good reminders, Wendy.
Absolutely.
So that's a nice little springboard into, and I'm going to direct everybody to the bottom of the slide that's showing right now, the PORT, which is the Professional Oncology Resource Team. Now, Colleen, you've been managing that, and I know it kind of came, and my understanding was it came out of it was a little bit of a brainchild, where a bunch of you people that provide support to cancer people got together at a meeting somewhere and started talking and said, hey, we can help each other.
We were meeting for something else, actually. It was through the
American
environmental
Cancer thing or something.
Yeah, I think the American Cancer Society had a transportation initiative, and Casey had gotten us all together, and we met at our clubhouse. And when that was done, we were like, why don't we continue to meet? This has been really great to exchange information and just be in touch with each other. And so we decided to try it out, and it's really growing, which has been just a great resource for all of us, a way to share resources and connect and even do some of that self-care that we were just talking about. We've had a couple speakers that have come in and just talk to us and remind us of good things to be doing for ourselves. And our next meeting, we're meeting quarterly, so our next meeting is in November. And we just decided that we're just going to have a discussion and kind of check in with each other, because the first part of it's a 2-hour meeting. The first part of the meeting, we really take a chance to do like a round robin and people kind of update on what's going on within their organization. And then the second part has been more of having a discussion or an expert speaker come in to talk to us. We're going to take that time to just kind of talk amongst each other and just share. So hopefully the group will just continue to grow, and at some point we'll get back together and meet in person. But again, it's been nice to have the online piece, because you can connect from anywhere. So people who have early morning meetings and maybe don't have the travel time can come in for at least part of it, or come in late, whatever works best for them.
So that I want to come back to Port a little bit, but I'm going to throw this question back out to all three of you again. So now that we've discovered this online convenience of meeting, even though it's not quite the same as face-to-face, number one, do you think we're going to continue it beyond quarantine? Number two, or do you think we're going to do a hybrid model like the schools are all doing? Or what do you think? What's your projection in the future, or what's the ideal for you as you move your group support, your organization support in the future?
Well, I can say from our clubhouse standpoint, I think the hybrid is probably the way that we'll go. I think we're learning as we go, but even just watching the teachers, my kids, I know that they're teaching in class, and then they have some kids that are on Zoom or are doing the virtual piece. And I can't wait to kind of interview some of them and see how that's going, so that we can really try to incorporate that in some of our programming and figure out how we're going to do this, because we know it's been a success, and it's a great way to tap into more people. So we're just going to have to figure out what's the best way to do that. And it's, I'm sure, going to take a few tries to get it right, but it's a great thing to learn about, great thing to be able to offer.
Yeah, I feel the same way from the cancer caring standpoint of view. Two groups I can think of off the top of my head that will probably continue this way. One will definitely be our general group, which will be every Wednesday, because it's just, such a nice bond, and it's a great format to have these speakers. We would plan things for weeks and have it at the center, which is in the middle of town, right? And then 5 people would show up and everybody would be disappointed, right? Yeah. So this way, it just works better for everybody. So that will continue. And then I actually began a grief support group, a structured grief support group. And it has been able to pull in people, once again, from that rural community, right? I have people from the rural community that now, instead of driving into the center for a grief support group twice a month for 5 months, because it's structured, they can tune in. And then what I do is we have our first ending of that. The last session will be out at North Park Lake, and we're going to do a virtual distancing lantern event where we're going to launch, do an art project for memory lanterns, and then launch them into the lake and have a little bit of interaction together. So it'll be a hybrid of one time together and then the rest virtual. So I think, yes, in answer to Ruth's question, for sure, this is around to stay, and I think there are a lot of benefits to it. Absolutely.
And Yolanda, I saw you shaking your head yes before as well.
Yes, Stephanie, who is the founder of the Young Adult Survivors United, we've spoken very intensely about what we wanted to do after, if there is an after COVID at some point. But I honestly think the hybrid way is going to be the only way it's actually going to work. I hate to be so, looming, but I feel like, much like Wendy and Colleen have already spoken of, it gives us such a reach that we had not had before. And speaking from the young adult cancer perspective, there's not a lot of support specific to young adults out there. I won't say tons, but there are organizations geared specifically for pediatric cancer. And we already know there's already general, groups much at, our clubhouse, at Cancer Caring, which I've been a part of as a survivor, both groups at both locations, and they're amazing. But to gear in and hone in on young adults, that it's just different. Young adult cancer is not pediatric, and it's not my grandmother at 60 years old. It's very, very different. So we've discussed it. It will be kind of a hybrid, and much like Wendy was speaking of, we're actually having an event, if you can call it that, this weekend, where we as young adults just want to get out and get in fresh air. So we're going to go play a little basketball, a little four square, have our masks on, social distance, stare at our cars as much as possible, but just see one another. So that hybrid, I feel like, is going to be very important. But also speaking to reaching how far your reach can go. Like I said earlier, we have members now that are from Idaho, that are from New York, that are from Baltimore, even from California, and we still want to keep supporting them as well. So I think it'll be that 50-50 hybrid model.
That's really interesting. So this is our silver lining of the big COVID cloud, is we've been able to reach more people and support more people, and have basically grown that web of support, which is honestly it is a good thing. Once again, I'd like to just, any of the audience listening in, if you want to jump in and ask a question, just raise your hand or unmute yourself and jump on in. So I'm going to go back to the port now, because it was something that whenever Colleen was talking about, I wanted to go a little bit more in depth. So how many members do you have in port? And I realize it's probably a flexible group. Do they represent all independent organizations, or do you have them from the major healthcare systems? And how far is the reach of port? What is the extent of the representation?
So it's pretty much all of the above what you said. It's independent. There's some independent providers there. There's people from hospitals, from the different nonprofit organizations. I want to say we're probably close to 40 to 50 emails that I send the emails out to, the reminders of the meetings. I don't know, I would say we average 15 people. Would you say, Wendy, about 15 people?
Yeah, I'd say about 15 people. And I actually, when I joined in with these guys, when they had started, they were the major organizations. And then whenever Stephanie, who was our representative from the Cancer Caring Center at that point, invited me to attend a meeting, and I had already been a part of a Lunch and Learn bereavement group, very similar to this in Pennsylvania. And I just loved it, because there were people from, hospices, and a lot of people doing the same thing, but some things that are different. Just like, the Cancer Caring Center and Clubhouse, we do some things that are similar, some things that are different. And, I think we can benefit from everything, and so, and so at that point, I said, let's use that model and support one another, and, in the community, learning. And my real dream is to have a resource fair with all of us in it, for each other and then for the public, because I just think that, and that's kind of the social work background that I'm sure Colleen and I both have, that is just, we want to spread the resources. We want to be able to, to open that up to everybody. And it's worked well. And it's also enabled us, I know, our clubhouse and the center, Cancer Caring Center, we've been able to work together. We did we're in the process of doing a caregiver series together online, which has worked out really well. And we pulled in another organization. It's a family caregiving center in McGee, and we have a caregiver series that we have up online. And so that way they can advertise with all of their entities, we advertise with ours, and then we reach even more people, and we show how a community of cancer care can work really well together, right? There's plenty, these guys laugh at me, but I always say there's plenty of room in the sandbox to play together, right? And we're here for one common good, and that's to help, caregivers and their family members and their survivors, right?
Well, speaking of that, whenever you do have that information available, I will love to share it with the rest of the PCC. and we can get even more people involved and maybe, you know, just strengthen support across the state as well. I think that would be something, you know, you've already mentioned about talking with, you know, some people who live in the rural areas, but, you know, there's certainly a large need for those support systems. And once again, it makes it easier now that it has become more of a virtual participation, that people can be part of a larger group, and, you know, knowing that they're not alone in their cancer journey, and even in the beyond in their survivorship as well.
Ruth,
Susie,
it's
yes.
Suzanne. I hate to be a pain, but I just want to say this is wonderful. And I don't know if the CAB is on your mailing list, but we'd love to be. And we'd love to participate, especially those of us who are survivors and are big fans of everything y'all are doing.
So that's why I left this slide up here also, Suzanne. There's their emails. You can get a hold of any of these ladies anytime through those emails, but we will certainly try to get that information back and forth to the CAB as well as PCC.
Thank you.
Yeah, we would love to have, that's kind of how we're expanding our network right now, is we're just through word of mouth, and then we email Colleen, and Colleen she does an amazing job keeping us organized. So she adds everybody to the list, and then you know, we're able to have our quarterly meeting.
Wonderful. So I guess I'd like to go through and ask any of you, any of our panelists, if is there anything that we haven't covered that you would like to bring up and discuss at this point?
No, just to reach out whenever you have a question, right? I think to be able to be connected, you know, right now we do have 32 support groups up and running monthly, and there's something for everyone, you know, between us and Clubhouse and Young Adult Survivors United. We really, we all work well together. We know each other well, and we're happy to help you. So please reach out if you have any questions or difficult cases, or you know, that's what we're here to help brainstorm.
And I would just add to that, if you do check us out and you see all the different things that we're offering and you feel like, oh, you should offer this, if there's something that we're missing, let us know about it. Or if there's something that you can tell us about that we should add, we're always open to filling in gaps.
Absolutely. I was going to really reiterate that, and that, you know, much like Wendy and Colleen have said, we really know each other very well. We all work well together, and have for years at this point. And we are a resource, but we also know that we don't know everything. So it's really great to be in rooms like this with amazing people who we can all network. And much like Wendy said, that's the reason why we're in the room, is not just so that you can hear us talk, but so that we can learn from you as well. So definitely please reach out. I know, much like Wendy and Colleen were speaking of, we have some great programs going on. We did start some health one-to-one coaching for young adult cancer survivors after treatment. So we have a lot of great things going on, but we don't know everything. So definitely reach out, please.
That sounds like a plan. I think the other thing that I think of also, you know, what's great about you guys keeping in touch and you know, broadening your web of connections is, I think, you know, we're seeing a lot of changes post-COVID as to what resources are available as well. And as an individual, it's really difficult to stay on top of all of that. But as a group, keeping each other updated, it really does benefit the greater whole. And then ultimately, all of the patients who are looking for this kind of support, that it really is helpful to have this collaboration going on.
And Ruth, I think that's right there, the definition of port. Like, I think that's what we want to accomplish with our meetings, is let's keep each other up to date on what you've got going on, and, you know, what's new, what's changed, and that's like hits the nail on the head. Yeah,
it's you know, it's in the best of times, it's a moving target. And then now in this scenario, it becomes an even greater challenge to know exactly what's available.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're all trying to do the same thing, right? We're trying to help people who are living with or touched by cancer in some way. So if we can all pull together and do that, we're doing our job.
Right. And then recognizing how we can take care of one another, right? As caregivers, we take care of everybody else. And that's what I do.
Always good at reminding us to do that.
And hence why it's just important to take good care of yourself. Because as I always say, and these guys laugh at me, right? You have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can put it on the little lady next to me. And believe it or not, I have clients that will say to me, why put it on the little lady next to me or my child? I'm like, no, we have a lot of work to do because you got to put that mask on yourself before you can help others. So it's important.
Thank you all very much. Once again, I'll just give a moment if anybody in the audience has any additional questions.
Okay, Sharon, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Ruth, this has been great. I want to thank you, ladies. You are absolutely fantastic. I mean, it is so evident what you're doing comes from your heart, that you really, really care. I mean, that has been so evident in what we've seen today. And you're just a great example of how working together gets something done. You know, sometimes we all get in our own little sandboxes, so to speak, but you've gotten out and you're in the big sandbox and, you know, you're all working together. So I just think this has really been great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the panelists as well. I worry sometimes that people aren't going to answer my emails anymore, but thank you for everything and helping to make this a really meaningful panel discussion. Kate?
So one of the things that I would offer to you, this is Monica, is that if you have or can think of articles or creative information or things that you want shared with the coalition, while we can't guarantee every submission, please submit that to me. And I'll put my email in the chat again, because those are opportunities for us to publish things on our Pennsylvania Cancer Coalition website.
Will do, Monica. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, thank you to our panel. What a wealth of information, content, and collaboration, and great networking. And thank you really to everybody for this afternoon. Just really wonderful conversation, wonderful expertise. And we just, again, really appreciate your time and coming and sharing that with us. So I'm going to move us to the next slide. And, you know, this morning we were a little bit, I guess, if you will, a little bit delayed. We went a little over, and today we're a little ahead. So at the end of the day, we sort of end at the same time that we were planning. So just to kind of take us home, a couple of words that I would like to share. And I had my thing written down because, of course, you know, and Sharon, you'll keep me true to any other reminder that I would need to just give. But once again, this meeting was recorded from the whole thing, from 9:30 all the way through, and this will be posted on the PACancerCoalition.org website. So, you know, looking back and seeing, you know, what that, you know, conversation looked like, there is a home for that. In addition to that, the slides will be shared too. As mentioned throughout, if you are not a member and would like to be, and I know that Monica, you put that into the chat, that there is a membership profile that would allow that to occur. And we would really much encourage that, because as you've heard, really a big theme throughout both the morning and the afternoon is that we are continuing to build this coalition and really diversifying our membership to really bring to the table those voices who maybe hadn't been before, and especially to those who are the day-to-day doing this. So our boots on the ground, as you've heard Lynn talk about too. And, you know, I think as we've seen also as a huge theme today from our data all the way through to our resources is that there is definitely a passion and a space and really close to home, the whole sort of scope of equitable health. And this is something, as we've heard this morning, part of our journey and what we will continue to do. So it is something as we sort of move forward that we will continue to talk about and move us as a coalition together through this whole thing and what that means for Pennsylvania. Also, as mentioned, just as a reminder, so on that theme sort of post today and through the next few weeks before the end of October, is that your work group chairs will be reaching out to meet with you regarding just some things, activities that would be for the next year of our plan, just to kind of get that in front of what we will be submitting in the coming months. So one last thing, this was our second virtual meeting. We made it. Whole day. I really appreciate everybody staying on to hear all of this wonderful expertise, and even just some of the little things that we had to go through as far as, just the technical stuff. I do appreciate your patience with us as we had gone through that. Definitely want to extend that appreciation. The other thing, as part of follow-up, we definitely encourage that feedback, the sort of topics that you want to hear about, and all of that good stuff. So when you do get that follow-up, please fill it out. We definitely want to hear from you. So at this point, I definitely want to pass it over to our other chairs. I'm going to kick it over to Mark as our outgoing chair, and then we'll leave the final word to Lynn. So Mark, if you're still here.
Yeah, thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Hey, just a fantastic day all around. Thanks so much, Kate, for being our trusted MC and all the, heat of the moment adjustments and tweaking and really kind of keeping this moving ahead. Great work on doing that, and we just couldn't do it without you. So thanks so much for doing that technical piece. And again, I want to express my sincere appreciation to all the PCC members, to our partners in the Pennsylvania Department of Health, who have really entrusted us all here as a coalition to move initiatives forward, to take overall broad strategies and figure out what works best in our communities. And we heard about those specifics today, and it's just so inspiring, and seeing just the great work that everybody's able to achieve. And I think sharing those practices today gets us all thinking about what are the tweaks that we can do to our own programs to make them just that much more effective. And so it's really inspiring to see that. So I'm glad to stay involved with the PCC membership at large, as well as helping to support the evaluation subcommittee and the work with Heather Batson and the team there. So we're looking forward to being involved with the data and evaluation piece for the coalition. And I'm proud to welcome Lynn Robertson as the new co-chair with Kate. And best of luck to you both in the continuation of our pursuit of these goals. And if there's anything that, of course, that I can do to support you, please just reach out.
Thank you, Mark.
Hi, this is Lynn. I want to echo both Mark and Kate's comments. And I, again, want to thank Kate for all the wonderful job she did of emceeing and managing slides, because that's never, ever an easy job to manage slides for so many people. But I want you all to take a few minutes to just reflect back. I mentioned earlier that I've been with the PCC for close to 10 years. And, I thought a lot throughout this meeting of day one, when we all came together to write the cancer plan, really to start to organize, even to begin to think about writing the cancer plan once again for Pennsylvania, and working very closely with the PA Department of Health. And then once that first 5-year cancer plan was done, moving on to the second, and now soon the third. We have come such a long, long way. And I think when I reflect back and think of the early days and look at now, the collaborations and people working together and learning from each other, and how we've just broadened our efforts across the state to really work on what we put in those plans and to keep moving forward. It just gives me such hope that we will be able to achieve getting into the communities on the ground level even more, and to deal with the inequities and the disparities that are out there in relation to cancer, both physically, research-wise, biologically, etc. So I think we have our work cut out for us, but I know we are a group that can do it. And I hope all of you have a great remainder of the day, and I'm, again, honored to be a part of this team.
Thank you so much, Lynn. And again, thank you to everybody. We look forward to hopefully seeing you in sometime in the future, but we will keep you in the loop, of course, for our coming meeting that will close out our 2020 year. So thank you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And please, if there's other resources, questions that you may have for one of our speakers or other, please, by all means, let us know. Thank you.